Hello, and once again, this is Kayla, and you are tuned in to Climate Action Figures.
Hello and welcome to the final edition of Climate Action Figures for Season 3. I'm John Whidden, and this week on the show, we get to meet Kayla once again, our creative consultant. But first, this week's quick fix. If you ever have a quick fix for us, please send it in via social media or climateactionfigures@gmail.com. This week, the quick fix comes from Linda in Rochon Sands, and Linda says, replace your chemical cleaning supplies with things like vinegar and baking soda. They work very efficiently. So thank you very much for that quick fix, Linda, and welcome back, Kayla.
Hello, I'm back again. You missed me?
We did. Nice to have you back. What did you think about that quick fix, Kayla?
That's great. I always have my white vinegar and my baking soda that I use all the time for cleaning. And if I need something a little bit more intense, then I definitely try and get the natural cleaning product.
It takes a little bit of work, but it's worth it. And I brought mine out of the closet just so I could show it here. I just grabbed an old bottle of something and took the label off. Half vinegar, half water, and a few drops of dish soap. Someone gave me that recipe a long time ago, and it works beautifully for all-purpose cleaning.
Cool.
You ready for the next one? This one's worn off a little bit. We've used it so much. This is dishwasher rinse agent. I read somewhere 3 cups of boiling water, 3/4 of a cup of citric acid, and 50 drops of whatever essential oil you like. 50 drops is a bit much. I don't actually put any in because I don't care what my dishes smell like. But that is rinse agent.
That would take a lot to count.
Yeah, that's right. It's cheap and you reuse the bottle. It's very exciting. And here's one more for you, Kayla. This is the little glasses cleaner, right, with the little rag. I was in at the optometrist, and I said, I hate throwing these bottles away. What can I do? And she said, oh, we've got a big bottle in the back. Just give me your little bottle, and I'll fill it up. So, challenge to you, audience, go out and get your, if you have glasses, get your glasses cleaner refilled instead of getting a new plastic bottle every time.
And mine is empty, so that is perfect timing for me.
Excellent. Well, you'll have to report back and let us know if your optometrist also does that.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope so.
So, Kayla, what have you been up to?
Oh gosh, it's been a busy time for me, but I'm about to get even busier. I am planning on doing a really big trip at the end of August here. It's going to be 2 months. And I'm going to Japan, South Korea, and China.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm super excited. Yeah, it's a dream trip. I've been planning and hoping for it for years now.
And I'm not just acting surprised. I did not know that. So that's very cool. One of our guests who was in finance in South Korea, she was talking about South Korea and how I recall her saying that recycling is incredible in South Korea. And I said, how do they look after, how do they make sure people recycle? And they said, there's cameras everywhere. And if you don't put it in the right bin, you're in trouble.
It's legal. You have to legally recycle properly. And that's part of the reason I'm also really excited to see in Japan. I've also heard that it's really clean. They specifically have a culture of no littering, keeping everything clean. I've seen videos where after a big sports game, all of the fans clean up the stadium rather than leaving all their garbage everywhere and then the cleaners have to come clean it. So I just really admire that societal duty to reduce littering and keep the environment clean. So I'm really excited to see that.
One of the many great things about travel is you go and you experience something like that and you come back and you integrate it somehow into your own culture. So, why can't we be so clean after a football game or a hockey game or something?
Everyone, take your garbage from your popcorn bag out of the movie theater when you leave. You don't have to leave it for the cleaners. You can take it out too. Well, John, I will put the question back on you. What have you been up to lately?
Just working away, but I did attend a very cool conference lately that I'd love to mention, and that is KEPA. It stands for Kainai Ecological Protection Agency. And it's a First Nations gathering, a cross-cultural gathering that anybody can attend in southern Alberta. Lots of Blackfoot wisdom, First Nations elders. When I think about what does reconciliation look like, I think this is part of it, because I'm learning so much when I attend this about their culture and how the environment is so integral in their way of thinking, and how I can incorporate that into my way of thinking. So I really enjoy that, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is at all interested. I'll put that up in the show notes.
Wonderful. That sounds really, really cool.
I've been fortunate to be able to be part of a number of Indigenous ceremonies in my life, including a sweat lodge and pipe ceremony. But for the first time at this conference, I was part of a tipi ceremony. Not part of, just observing, because, well, I was part of actually painting the tipi, which was super cool. And now I know where it will live, and so I can go see the tipi. And the elder said, and it's part of his family, like it's his family's tipi now. So he said, if you ever see this tipi, you just go and you can say hello and come right in, because you're part of the creation of it. So you have the right to go into it. So we watched the handing over ceremony of this tipi to this family, and it was super cool and an honor to be part of. And you don't often see a tipi ceremony.
That's amazing. That's such a great experience. Yeah, I would love to be a part of a tipi ceremony as well someday.
We should talk about season 3. We're coming to a close here. This is the last episode.
Yes.
When you've listened or watched these episodes this season, has anything jumped out at you?
Oh my gosh, this season, I mean, it's tough. This might have been my favorite season. I feel like we had so many different topics and so much insight that was shared. I really, really enjoyed listening to this season. First of all, what first jumps out at me was our guest from Piikani Nation, episode 1 to 5. It was just an incredible mini series that we had where we talked to multiple different people from Piikani Nation that talked about that Indigenous ways of knowing and connections to the environment that you mentioned. That really stands out to me.
Yeah, I love that as well. Mike, the teacher, the students, Gracie was just so beautiful. I can't wait to see what she does with her life. She talked about becoming a medicine woman, and I am no doubt she's going to do that. I just look forward to seeing that happen. It was all wrapped up together at the end with Brett, the administrator for the students, talking about how this all came together, this greenhouse. If you haven't checked those ones out, definitely worth your while.
And then I also loved learning about our food systems and agriculture from Julia. That was episode 9. And then also Vaibhav, episode 16. I learned so much about the soil. And if you would have asked me even a year ago if I wanted to learn about the soil, I would have definitely scoffed and said, no, that sounds so boring. I don't want to learn about soil. But it was so interesting. And I am so much more fascinated by soil now and invested in the regeneration of the health of our soil. It was incredible.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. 5 minutes before the interview, I was thinking, okay, this guy who I've never met is going to talk about soil. That'll be exciting. And he just turned me around on that one. I agree. If you haven't seen Vaibhav's episode, definitely check that one out. You can use this episode right here as your guide to catching up to the season if you have missed any of these. And of course, there are a lot in between there that we're not going to get to cover. But yeah, we don't often have a guest come back on the program, but we did that this season.
Yes, we had Aryan come back, and that was such a treat. I mean, of course, I mentioned him, it's one of my fan favorites, and I think a lot of other people did as well. And what was such a joy is to get to see how he's grown and the things that he's taken and done since the last time we heard from him. I know so many people get a lot of enjoyment from seeing the progress of what some of these youth champions are doing as they grow up. So that was so wonderful to hear from him again.
Yes, we have probably had more listener and viewer feedback on his episodes than any other episodes, although we have other great guests.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, his just ingenuity in robotics and how it can and serve the environment is really inspiring and really wonderful.
So if you missed Aryan this season, go back to episode 15 and you will not be disappointed.
And we also got even more insight into Indigenous stewardship for the environment, both from Free and Alice. That was so wonderful, especially because oftentimes especially myself being based out of Alberta, I hear a lot about Treaty 7 First Nations and kind of their worldview of how they're protecting the environment and Indigenous environmental stewardship. But hearing from Alice, from an Indigenous person in Uganda, was so incredible, and hearing about other places in the world that Indigenous peoples are working so hard to protect the environment and to steward the land.
Yes, those were fascinating. I have to consult my notes to get the numbers right. Free was episode 11, and episode 17 is where you'll find Alice. Oh, and then in between those, we had Kim on episode 14 from Guyana, who is Indigenous South America. And I was thinking, it's fascinating to hear the differences between the First Nations views. Actually, it was Free who corrected me on that one. That's a Canadian term, First Nations. Indigenous is the better worldwide term. So different Indigenous views from different continents. Yet there are some striking similarities in the way they look at the world and resources, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another interesting thing that struck me when I was speaking with Kim being in South America, was our 5th continent on this program. Did you realize we've talked with people from 5 continents?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
No, that's amazing.
lots from North America, of course. We've spoken to a number of young people from India, a bunch we've spoken to from Europe, Africa, at least 5 from Africa now, and Asia, lots from India, the South Pacific. Actually, does Australasia cover the South Pacific? I said Australasia, so I was thinking New Zealand or Australia, but does Samoa count as that continent? I don't know. We'll have to look this up.
I think so. Okay, well, now we know our goal for next season. Listener, if you're hearing this and you are a climate action figure living in Antarctica somehow, please get in touch. We would love to have you on the show so that we can get all 7 continents.
Maybe we could interview a penguin.
They would probably be super in support of the environment, I bet.
All right. So as you were talking about Antarctica, I actually looked up Samoa, and it says officially the independent state of Samoa, an island country in Polynesia, part of Oceania. Woo! We have 6 continents.
Yes! I knew it.
That's exciting. We're truly a worldwide podcast, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's very cool. Okay. So Kayla has put down the gauntlet for finding a guest in Antarctica and cover the entire world. All right. Where were we? Presidi. Oh, Presidi. Wow. What a fountain of wisdom that young woman was.
I could not believe she was 13.
Yeah.
She's not smarter than me.
I don't even know what to say. You just have to watch the episode. That's 26. Go to 26. If you haven't seen that one, wow. A guru. She's going to be a mountaintop someday,
Incredible.
just, visiting with people who climb up to talk to her, I think.
Definitely. And the fact that she was visiting school principals and talking to them when she was 6 years old is
Amazing
so
story.
mind-boggling. So if you have not listened to her episode, oh my gosh, you're missing out. And then also another favorite of mine that I have to give a shout out, Twyla's episode. That was such a fun episode. That's episode 23. And that, if you don't know, is John's daughter, Twyla, who I kind of grew up with as well. So that was so much fun to see and listen to the two of you and hear about some of the crazy environment shenanigans that goes on at your house. And I believe all of it. I'm not surprised. So that was a really fun episode to listen to.
We had a huge number of friends watch that episode, and they really enjoyed it. And the thing I heard over and over again was, she took it easy on you. And I thought, well, she took a few shots for sure. But yeah, she could have been more cruel, I guess. But it was fun. Now, episode 27 was our last episode, and that was Abe. And I really found him interesting. I think because the roots of our climate work are so kind of intertwined. This podcast came from climate anxiety questions and a school program that I developed. The kids did these great projects. How do we share those? Oh, a podcast. That's where this came from. And he is a very similar rooting in climate anxiety, and that's what he's studied at the University of Regina. And now he's the guru for What on Earth, the national CBC radio program, as their climate anxiety expert. So He's got a lot to say. He talks very quickly. You almost have to listen to the episode twice to catch everything he says. But actually, a listener messaged me and she said, I didn't know that I could slow the speed down on my YouTube. She said she went down to 60 or 70%, and she said then it sounded kind of odd because everybody's, but then she said she went to 80% and it was perfect. I've been guilty of ratcheting it up to 1.25, 125%. So if I need to get through an episode of something or a lecture, but yeah, you can slow it down too.
Definitely go take a listen if you haven't listened to any of those episodes. And as John mentioned, all the other ones in between, because they were all amazing. If we could, we would list every single one of them.
You are correct. We cannot name them all in this episode, or it would be a 4-hour episode. So go back and check them out. It warms my heart to listen to the stories of these young people all over the world doing amazing things about climate and the environment. Just awesome.
Well, then, on that note, what up for next season? Is there a season?
We are going ahead with season 4, and I'm not going to share any specifics. Yes, yay, fireworks. We haven't completely confirmed the guests, but trust me, we've got some really interesting people coming on that we've been talking to over the last month or so. So that'll be coming up in the fall. And if you have ideas, dear audience member, if you know of a young person who's doing amazing things, please get in touch with us via social media or the email address. And also give us your feedback on what you like about the program, what you'd like to change about the program, ideas about new things we could try. Did we do anything new on the program this season?
Weren't we introduced to Cluck?
Oh, Cluck. Cluck is here. Where are you? I thought we might need to bring Cluck into the picture here. And I should tell you, I don't think you even know this, Kayla, that Cluck had a big adventure. And through social media, Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, we are going to share Cluck's great adventure this summer. So that'll be fun. Maybe twice a week, a story from Cluck's adventure. First time on an airplane for Cluck. Very exciting.
My gosh. They've seen things. I can see it in their eyes.
Well, Kayla, we're going to have to wrap things up. And I wonder if you have a climate action you've chosen for us today.
So it's so funny having me on the show so many times. I'm really put to the test how many climate actions I can have, and it's really a good challenge for me. Like,
speaking of which, I have to interrupt you for a second and go back to the start when we did the quick fix, because audience members, I have to be honest and say, I told Kayla I'm going to use my own quick fix, because Colleen and I, when we go out for ice cream, we always use a cone instead of a cup, so you don't have a cup and plastic spoon you throw in the garbage. Isn't that great? And Kayla replied and said, we used that last season in this same episode. I totally forgot. So much for that.
Okay, well, I didn't remember either. The only reason I knew was because I went to the last episode that I was on to make sure that I wasn't going to say the same climate action.
This is the confessions section of this episode, and we'll bring that to a conclusion now and get right back to the climate action. But yes, all this to say, you are put to the test because you have to come up with a new climate action all the time. But you do all kinds of amazing things. So tell us what you've chosen this time.
Okay, so this time I thought I would say something that's quite relevant to what I mentioned before in my exciting news that I'm going on a really big trip. I have been trying to do more research into sustainable travel because, as someone who loves to travel, I've been very privileged to get to do a lot of travel in my life. And I think it's important to try and be sustainable in all things that we do. So I've been looking into some sustainable tips. And I will say these are going to be specific to sustainable travel, not necessarily responsible travel, which I also like to do. But that's just why I'm going to include more environmentally focused ones rather than other ones that are just meant to be just really like culturally aware and culturally sensitive, which you should also do when you're traveling. So some of the ones that really stood out to me that I'm going to be for sure trying to do this trip is avoiding flights where possible, because of course, transportation when traveling is going to be the majority of the climate impact you're probably going to have, right? Flights cause a lot of emissions, as I'm sure so many people know, but a lot of the times you can't get around going on flights. However, if you can, I think it's really important to try and reduce the impact you have with transportation. Like between cities in the same country, you're going to be taking a train. rather than taking a flight.
Flying is just fraught. It's so bad for the environment. But you do it, I do it. Our guests have talked about doing it to get to COPs. And so, if we're going to go out and, like we said earlier, bring new ideas back and not become a monoculture, then we each have to make our own choices about this, I guess. But we do the best we can. And you talked about train. Train travel's great. And it is actually the safest form of travel. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, interesting. The other thing I was looking at is pack light. Not only if you have a lighter suitcase, then it's going to reduce the amount of emissions for if it's heavy when you're in the airplane or in a car even. I think that causes more gas usage if you have heavier luggage. But also then you make sure that you're not bringing things that you don't need. You also aren't throwing things out in your trip and buying fancy new stuff. So just pack what you need, right? And then of course, also there's some countries that you can't drink the tap water. We're very lucky here in Canada and, well, not every place in Canada, but Calgary, the city that I live in, the tap water is drinkable. So I don't usually have to worry about that. But when you travel, oftentimes you just have to buy plastic water bottles all the time, which is not great. However, I saw someone say, no, just bring a filtration water bottle and then you can do it, So that's a really great idea if that is a safe option to just bring a filtration water bottle instead of having to use disposable plastic water bottles. And then lastly, there's a lot of different great tourism companies that focus on sustainable travel and ecotourism. And there are some specific tours that they offer in many, many different countries. So if you're interested in something like that, definitely check it out.
Well, this could almost be a regular segment, Travel with Kayla.
Gosh, well, we'll see. So I'll check back in with you when I get back from my trip about some of the things that I did to try and be more sustainable.
Well, lots of great ideas. Thanks for sharing those, Kayla. And final question, as always, you know what's coming. What gives you hope?
This is also, I feel like this is the biggest challenge of coming on so many times because, hard to say, finding different sources of hope. But I really thought a lot about this time. And something that we've already given a shout out to on the podcast, we talked about it in our episode with Free, is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It is an incredible book. So many people love it, and it is for a really good reason. And I think one of my biggest key takeaways from that book was something that gave me a lot of hope is that I used to always believe that the best thing for the environment would be if we affected it the least. How much would the environment heal without the impact and interference from humans if we just weren't in here messing it up all the time? But when I was reading Braiding Sweetgrass, it was so hopeful to hear that no, there is a world and a situation where humans can have a positive impact on the environment and we can actually do something to make it better than it would be without us, which is a really wonderful thought because I used to think that is the best solution for us to just not even be around and we're just a blight on the world, which is a sad thought. And it was a really wonderful thought to think, oh my gosh, no, we can actually make it better. And I'd never even considered that before. And that thought really gives me hope.
Well, more great youth wisdom. That was very thoughtful, Kayla. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks so much for joining us today.
It was such a pleasure, like always.
And thank you, dear listener and viewer. If you know of a young climate action figure we should talk with, please let us know via social media or our email address. We will not be back again next week, same time, same place. But we will be back in the fall with an exciting lineup of young people who are doing things that will recharge your hope battery. Until then,
go figures.
This has been Climate Action Figures, produced and hosted by John Whidden, creative consultant Kayla McIntosh. The theme song is Hawaii Vacation by Tavari. You can get in touch with us via any social media platform. I don't remember which ones we're on. Thank you for listening and tune us in next time with another Climate Action Figure.
You're the creative consultant and you don't know which platforms we're on?
All of them. I don't know. Are we on TikTok? I don't think so. No, we're not.